spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Story. I'd like to thank everybody who's coming in to watch us. My name is Daniel Parker, and I am the writer and creator of the comic book that you just saw the trailer for. That is, of course, Angel's Awakening, currently in demand on Indiegogo.
Fully funded.
Fully funded, yeah. So, so if you haven't picked up a copy or backed this book yet and gotten yourself a copy yet, you still have some time to do that. And joining me on this for this show, of course, is my partner in crime, off to my to my left, I guess. So go ahead and tell us who you are.
I am the man with no name. Oh, no,
Yes.
I have two names. People call me DarthBobCat. I'm also called D. Benjamin Fastbinder on Amazon.
And tell us about your book.
Well, so up there we have Second Contact, a Checkpoint Alpha story. This was one that I did as sort of a side project for my main series as a writing prompt that I did just turned into a short story. It's basically about it's kind of like an Aliens scenario with a little bit of Among Us mixed in, with an alien that can disguise itself as members of the crew and their attempts to hunt him down.
Yeah, it sounds like a really cool story. I haven't read it yet, so I still need to read it. Need to get on that. But
well, to be fair, I haven't read your story yet.
Well, that's true. Well, I haven't I haven't gotten it to you yet. So
hush, I was giving you an out. You an out.
Okay. So, but yeah, if you haven't picked up a copy of Second Contact yet, link is in the description, as well as to DarthBobCat's other books, Confessions of the MAGPIE Wizard, and of course, Angel's Awakening is in there as well.
Right. Pick up Second Contact. Make it of grande instead of a venti at Starbucks tomorrow. Your gut will thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what else can you get? What other quality product can you get for $1.29? I can't think of anything.
Not many.
Not many. Yeah, not many things. So, all right. So, of course, if you've watched this stream before, you of course know what Bobcat and I are saying.
Buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. All right. So for this show, we are talking, of course, about audience and theme, and as well as subverting expectations with your story. So we're going to start. We're going to start off with audience, and then move on to theme, and then subverting expectations.
Yep. Now, now when you start writing, you're going to think to yourself, "Oh man, everybody is going to love this book." Who's your audience? Everybody who can read.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we like to call extremely unrealistic. There are some books like, the Da Vinci Code that just blow up. Even then, not literally everybody is reading the book. So what you really want to do is you want to think about who's your ideal audience member. Back, I used to work for Microsoft. I wasn't like a programmer or anything. I was in their retail division for a year or so when Windows Phone came out. Which, man, that was a product that I loved so much at the time. but man, did that fail hard. But that's either here nor there.
Mhm.
Part of their design process with it, and this is a common practice in engineering, is to kind of go, okay, what does our user look like? And so they came up with these different personas and built features of Windows Phone around that.
Mm.
So like they had this family hub feature when that first launched. So they imagined a busy mom who could do feature things with that. There were features that made it easy to share certain types of things with a few pushes of a button. Kind of primitive by today's standards, but some of the things were a little bit ahead of what iOS and Android were offering at the time. Plus, they were the first OS to have a dark theme, but that's going off topic into things that only DB cares about. So,
Yeah.
knowing my audience, you're here to talk about stories. Back to stories.
Hey,
Cengiz.
Cengiz.
We'll get to Roundhead soon enough.
Yeah,
Don't you worry.
Yeah, we will be getting to him very, very soon. Okay.
So what you can do for your story is you can kind of imagine what your audience member would look like. And there are certain features of what that would be. It can be things like, roughly how old are you writing for? If you're writing for 12-year-olds, cut down on the potty language and the I don't know, blatant sex scenes.
And maybe some of the any overabundant violence and gore and blood and yeah.
Yep. Unless you're Animorphs, in which case K.A. Applegate can somehow get away with that, but it's because they're aliens.
Yes.
But yeah, it's probably the best thing you can do.
So and
oh no, go ahead. Did you freeze there? Cengiz, can you hear?
also too if
you clicked out for a moment there.
Yeah, I know. My internet's
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and so and also if your audience is say middle-aged women, not what I want to say, have as many have as many billionaires with chiseled abs as possible.
Yes, I mean there's a reason that in the Marvel movies that Thor and Cap they either get shirtless or in a very tight shirt once per movie.
Yes.
Except for Endgame when Thor got a pot belly, but that's either here nor there. But,
well, he didn't have a shirt on.
Yeah, but we want him to have a shirt on.
Well, we want him to have a shirt. Yeah. But, walking in looking like the dude.
Yeah, and so probably the best thing you can do is now it depends on what you're doing. It's actually very hard to ask people about stories they would like to read because people in general either don't care about you or they do care about you. Both of these are bad for getting candid responses. Because like if you were just go to somebody on the bus and go, "Excuse me, sir, what kind of stories do you like to read?" They would probably put in their earbuds, turn them up, and turn around.
Yeah.
If it's your mom, if you say, "Hey, mom, what kind of stories do you like to read?" "Oh, honey, anything you make would be great."
Mm-hmm.
So since audience reactions since pre-audience reactions are pretty much useless, probably the best thing to do would be to figure out who your target audience is and read and there are a bunch of sites out there where you can see the top selling books or video games or movies in different genres, and you can use that to try to hone what you're writing. You don't want to just like write. It's called write to market, which you don't want to just be a complete rip-off hack because we only need so many copies of the Hunger Games.
Uh-huh.
That market is long since saturated because everybody just looked at, okay, what's the top selling kids book? Hey, Hunger Games, cool.
Yeah.
It's a dystopia with a clumsy girl who has two guys after her, and then they end the world with their dumb behavior.
Yeah.
Or
No, I'm the dude.
uh,
All right. Sorry.
no, audience participation is always welcome.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So, you got, so like the Hunger Games, you also get stories like, the Maze Runner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Or, yeah.
that one about the city that was on the wheels that flopped horribly.
Oh, is it the steampunk one?
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember.
Which actually makes the point right there for us.
Yeah, we can't remember it. Yeah, it was such a memorable story, you know.
And that was basically the last one of those literary kids books that they tried to make a movie adaptation because when a company takes $100 million bath,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it tends to scare everybody else off.
Immortal Engines. Thank you, Cengiz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can go too far with it, but so like you don't want to just go, okay, yeah. Post-apocalypses are hot right now. I'm going to write me a post-apocalyptic story about a rebellion with an archer girl and who has two guys that she likes.
Yeah.
Now, what you might notice is, okay, so if my target audience is teenage to young adult women, they tend to like stories about people who have something fantastical happen to them, who are in some way rather plain besides maybe like one extraordinary talent like Katniss's archery or Bella's ability to convert oxygen into carbon dioxide into oxygen. And they like will they won't they love triangles.
Uh-huh.
It's like you could take those tidbits to try and write a story that would appeal to that. Now the smart money is in actually targeting multiple audiences at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Like for example, you might notice that young boys like series about guys with superpowers who fight monsters to save the day, and women like or young girls like that sort of will they won't they love triangle thing. And suddenly you've got X-Men.
Yes.
Because Wolverine can simultaneously be a badass midget with sword hands who's the best at what he does, but he can also be a sensitive soul who has a crush on Jean Grey, but alas, she is promised to Scott.
Yes. Or another one, if you want to do pull it from that as well, with Spider-Man. You have especially early Spider-Man with Peter Parker in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You've got him with Gwen Stacy, and then she dies, and then you bring in Mary Jane Watson, and then of course Peter's still grappling with the death of Gwen Stacy while trying to be in a relationship with her.
Yep. I think one of the lessons of comic books and wrestling is that men like soap operas too. You just have to dress it up different.
Yes.
But that's kind of that's kind of like the main audience portion. There's also the unexpected audience. Sometimes you make something, and for some reason, it catches on with a demographic that you wouldn't expect.
Uh-huh.
Twilight, for example, had its legion of older women, which I don't think was necessarily the target group.
No.
But they liked the same things as the younger ones. And of course, the most famous example of an unexpected audience ever. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Starts with a B, ends in a Roni.
B ends in Roni.
Bronies.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like you came out with a kids show that was designed to appeal to small girls and possibly also keep their brothers amused. But because it was written with like storylines, and you had a bunch of guys on 4chan who were already used to liking cute anime-ish things, it just ended up being kind of solid lock on that community too.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can just have this unexpected audience can be a real boon to you. The thing is, you can't plan for the unexpected audience, and you want to make sure that you don't suddenly start making the show to appeal to the unexpected audience.
Yes. Yeah, you got to, as Micah would say, dance with the one who brung ya. Dance with the one who brung ya. You know? Yeah.
If you're there to keep the little girls happy, maybe throw in the occasional little joke that the bronies would like, but just keep the show pure.
Yeah. Soap opera. If a soap opera has men in tight spandex fighting monsters, I'd watch.
Yep. We like to call that Chris Claremont X-Men.
Yes.
Like, seriously, I hadn't realized just how long he was on the book until I started watching Comics Perch. 16 years he kept that going until they finally changed editors and he was driven out. 16 years.
That's a long time to be working on one comic book series.
Yeah.
Although Dan Slott worked on Spider-Man for like 20, didn't he? 20 or 30?
Just 10.
10? Okay.
Yeah, but it was a lot of issues because they did a lot of double shipments and other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, knowing who you're writing for is important, because if you make something and you don't know, you don't have a very good grasp on who your audience will be, it's going to make selling that story to people that much more difficult.
Yep, I can say I'm an example of that. I classify MAGPIE Wizard on Amazon as a fantasy romance, which I had a very hard time deciding what genre I landed in, because I have a lot of romantic elements. Romance and is a major theme of the story, but I also have a lot of intrigue, battles with magic, and the like. So I could have just as easily have called it a fantasy adventure if I wanted to, or like since it's set in the near future with fantastic elements, I could have called it a urban fantasy technically. Yeah. So that took me a long time to figure out. And I still think sometimes, did I completely screw that up? But my path is set now. Yeah.
Nothing you can do about it. Yeah. So, and in my case, I mean, I could say like, I would say probably, obviously with Angels Awakening, a younger demographic would probably get more out of the book, and women will like it because it's got a female protagonist who's strong and all that stuff, but she's not too strong and overpowered. She's not a Kathleen Kennedy insert, and men will like it because it's got a lot of action and fight scenes and lots of booty.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that you're primarily aiming for a male or a female audience? I think I know the answer, but
it's primarily male. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is that this isn't like Destiny or anything, because like every female aimed genre has a certain amount of male audience, and every male genre has a certain amount of female audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you kind of have to, find the right balance between the two genders,
and also different demographics. So, like some stories just do not translate outside their home country. There's a lot of anime that never gets brought over because, and I've seen a few where they've tried, where they'll have like a minor reference and the top of the screen will just be blocked out by subtitles that you have to pause to quickly see like the significance of that allusion to an old legend they were making.
Yeah. You see that in manga too. If I don't know if you ever had read Fairy Tale,
Yes.
the manga. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, like I mean, in those mangas, I mean, they actually have like an entire glossary of the different phrases and terms of endearment that they use in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. And on the flip side, can you imagine trying to translate Family Guy for a Hungarian audience?
that would be very difficult. Yeah.
Right. Because like half the dialogue is very like inside or very inside baseball-y American references that you can't like. Sometimes like, is that actually funny, or am I just laughing because I recognized, haha, he said Spaceballs?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. It's there's definitely a lot that gets lost in translation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, audience-wise, have your ideal person in mind, but be ready to have some sort of audience outside of that, and be ready to capitalize on that if you suddenly do it. Like for example, if I suddenly discovered that 3/4 of my Kindle audience on MAGPIE Wizard was women, next book cover, Soren would be shirtless. Because if you look at the romance section on there, that's a huge chunk of it is just photos of buff men without their shirt on as the cover.
And conversely, if most of my audience reading my comic books are men, expect a lot of very sexy shots of Jessica.
Yes. She's a great advertising vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, there really isn't a good segue to these, because our two themes here of theme and audience are going to kind of be brought together by the subverting expectations thing at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So speaking of segues, so every story, at least a good story, will have a theme.
Mm-hmm.
Like the best example I've heard of is think of asking a 6-year-old, so what happened today? Well, I woke up and then I took a shower and then I brushed my teeth and then I ate breakfast and then I went on the bus and then I went to school and then I finger painted and then I played dodgeball and then and then.
Mm-hmm.
There's no theme to that. There's no point to that. A theme is kind of like a larger structure that is what the author is trying to explore with the work.
Right.
Now, there are as many themes as there are concepts that are suitable for a story. I did before this podcast, I did a little bit of looking, and Margaret Atwood on her masterclass had a pretty good rundown of some common themes.
I'm going to pull that up here. Yeah.
Yep. I've been talking a bunch. If you want to read those off for us.
Yeah, so let me just pull this down here. So if my computer will cooperate with me. Okay, so yes, we can start here. The literary theme main idea or underlying meaning a writer explores in a novel, short story, or other literary work. The theme of a story can be conveyed using character, setting, dialogue, plot, or a combination of all these elements. In simpler stories, a theme may be a moral or message. For example, don't judge a book by its cover. In more complex stories, the central theme is typically a more open-ended exploration of some fundamental aspect of society or humanity.
Yep, that's a really good summary of that. So, on Margaret Atwood's masterclass, she lists like 6 common themes as good versus evil, love, redemption, courage and perseverance, coming of age, and revenge. And I'd say that covers a pretty broad swath of stories.
Yes.
So good job, Margaret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go through each one of these. Good versus evil. That one's, I would say that one's been very, very much timeless. Even it's even in the Bible. So it's obviously the hero fighting the villain, or the knight slaying the dragon. Sorry, my very, very bad Jordan Peterson impression, but yeah, it's
right.
Yeah,
it's basically there's a moral order to the world. That moral order has been disturbed by something, and that something needs a good thumping.
Yes,
that can be as grand as Spider-Man stops somebody from mugging an old lady, and as great, or as small as that, or as great as the Galactic Empire has devised a new weapon, the Death Star, which can destroy whole planets.
Yes. Or a race of cybernetic beings that's assimilating the galaxy, and the crew of the Enterprise has to stop it.
Yep. It can also be a smaller scale too. You could have one about an old man whose landlord is ripping off the old man's neighbor, and he does what he can to try and get that revealed and stopped.
Yeah. Or oh shoot, what was it? A police officer or a detective trying to stop a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, love, that's pretty obvious. That's like, that can either be familial love, romantic love. There are certain types of deep friendship that would qualify as that.
Mm-hmm.
Just exploration of relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be, yeah, like you said, that could be like a romance story between whatever,
a romance story between a shy gamer girl who can turn invisible and a half devil.
Yes.
A magpie wizard of some sort, if you will.
Yes. or a guy who time travels through hypnosis and falls in love with a woman. That's Somewhere in Time.
I know that that's a real movie, but it sounds fake.
Yeah, it's Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour. Which is, although, okay, I'll give you a better example. Your Name.
Okay, yeah,
that one's probably better. But yeah,
look, everything is better when it's an anime. As soon as the West just acknowledges that and gives up on making movies, then we'll be better off.
Yes, and curse you, J.J. Abrams, from doing a live action remake of that movie. It's not necessary. Please don't.
Wait, JJ is making a live action Your Name?
I think he is, yeah. Yeah.
So redemption.
Yes.
Somebody in a low position, overcoming their sins to better themselves. Courage and perseverance. A good person in a harsh situation, just knuckling down and either succeeding or failing, but just never giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Coming of age, a child transitioning to adulthood, revenge. Everyone. Yes, it's funny. The same people who I like stories about good versus evil and redemption, but on the other hand, fuck Carlos.
Yes. Well, yeah, and or
to do like a little Englewood joke there.
Yes, yeah.
For those who don't know, it's that's Micah Curtis's new crowdfunding campaign. Is we finally get to see what happened after Carlos did a drive-by on Englewood's innocent members of his gym.
Yes. Yeah. And that's on. That just launched tonight, so get on that if you haven't. The other revenge is killing a former Russian assassin's puppy.
Wait, what did that happen in?
John Wick.
Oh yeah, sorry if I just completely blanked on that one.
Yeah. He worked for a Russian mob boss.
Yep.
Yeah. He was originally from Russia.
So, see, I misheard you there, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So those are some like good, just general categories, but you can get a lot more granular with your theme. For example, Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, which to my mind was the last great Marvel comic. I realized after a couple of volumes in, that was a whole exploration of this idea that's been bubbling up in superhero comics since the 90s. The idea of so superheroes are typically reactive, right? The Shocker builds a suit, he blasts down some bank vault walls, Spider-Man has to go in to stop him, but those bank walls still got damaged and maybe some people got hurt in the process. It's like you have this whole idea of the heroes who are preemptive, who figure out things before, like figure out the crime before it's committed, and go in and possibly just murder their villainous ass, like the Authority and things like that.
Right.
So that Uncanny X-Force was this whole exploration of, is that a good idea? What do superheroes give up when they do that? Because it was basically about the X-Men's hit squad with Wolverine and Psylocke and Deadpool and a few other people. It's definitely worth a read in my opinion, because it's not like the answer is the same every time. Sometimes mercy is the answer. Sometimes killing their ass is the answer. Sometimes the situation doesn't allow them to be noble, but it does eventually start taking a toll on them, and it kind of removes their what they eventually conclude is that it removes their moral superiority over the villains. Like, if Wolverine is going in and ganking somebody, is he any different than Sabretooth?
Right. Yeah, and obviously having those questions of morality are, I would say, are great themes to play with as well. Especially with obviously going back to comic books with Batman and Joker. How similar are they, but how different they are, and then of course Batman just trying not to overstep overstep and become like the Joker.
Right. And it's you can have a great moral argument. At one point, should Batman just say "F it" and break the Joker's neck?
Yeah, like he does in The Dark Knight Returns.
Although technically, Joker kills himself in that, because that guy's so crazy that he was like, "Oh, what's that? I'm paralyzed now. Okay, I'll just turn my neck the rest of the way so he looks like a killer."
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer is, of course, when Frank Miller is writing Batman at his breaking point.
Exactly.
So if you want to be a good moral person, don't let Frank Miller write you.
Yes, right. Yeah, or having him boinking Black Canary while there's fire and dead bodies everywhere.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Frank Miller, you magnificent, insane bastard.
Yes. Obviously these are all themes that I think you can do a lot with them, and obviously I would also say too, drawing on personal experience can help with some of these themes as well.
Yep. You may not have ever been a cyborg assassin from the future who is there to decide whether you should kill baby Hitler or not, because he's just so gosh darn cute. Look at his little hair over his little eyes.
Yeah.
But we've all faced moments in our jobs and our daily lives where we've had to decide, do I want to do something that seems satisfying in the moment, or should I hold off and just for the sake of discipline and what's good for me?
Hmm.
You could also have multiple themes in a story at the same time. Well, if it's a short story, not so much, but if you have a longer series, you could mix and match love, redemption, and revenge.
Yes.
Maybe the hero's love helps redeem him, and he has to choose whether he even wants the revenge anymore.
Oh, that sounds like a story or a movie or something that I've seen before or read before, but I can't think of it right now. Yeah, or you could throw in like redemption with courage and perseverance. Having to find the courage to redeem whatever it is that whatever mistakes that the character has made.
Yep, like maybe the character's been making wrong choices the whole book along, and now it's to the point where it's make or break.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to overcome that.
Yes.
Now here's here's kind of where these two. Now, and again, this is not a comprehensive. These are the 6 themes that a story is allowed to have.
Right.
These just cover a lot of ground. You can get more specific with the theme, like with X-Force. Should superheroes be preemptive and kill villains before they can hurt anybody when they're able to? You could. And I will say that Rick Remender can be a little bit blunt sometimes, because I often find myself not detecting themes until a second time around. But Uncanny X-Force, I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah. So, I think that pretty well covers theme, doesn't it?
The last thing I'll say about theme is that theme can be kind of the point of your story, because you can have an exciting adventure about a guy who just and I would say a lot. I think that if you watch a bunch of knockoff movies or books or things like that, they don't get the theme of the thing they're copying. Like they read Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns once, and they said, "Oh, heroes can be dark and brooding," without really thinking, well, why did they make the heroes dark and brooding? They just go, oh, well, that sells.
Yeah.
My new character's named Nightwolf, and he's a dark avenger whose parents were eaten by wolves right in front of him. So he skinned one and wears its pelt now, and he is the Nightwolf, avenger of the night. Ow! He has a bunch of pouches because it's a 90s comic.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a Nightwolf, but if there wasn't, there should have been.
Yes.
So where these two kind of intersect is if you have so let's say your audience is women who like romance. There's this tendency in a lot of modern writers who probably have gotten bored reading too many stories or watching too many movies, and kind of go to themselves, well, yeah, I mean, it's a romance story, so love conquers all, but what if it didn't? Well, the hero always survives their last fight with the villain. What if they didn't? Well, the audience is expecting the guy in the redemption story, like the guy in the story about an alcoholic who's trying to get sober, to be clean and sober at the end and repair his relationship with his family. But what if at the last minute he went on a 2-week bender instead and died in a ditch somewhere?
Yeah.
We call this subverting your expectations.
Yes. And it's subverting, and if you've read the description of the video, properly subverting expectations. Unlike a certain round-headed jackass
Yes.
who helped completely ruin a beloved franchise by subverting expectations.
Yeah. So to talk about The Last Jedi, here's the thing. Quite often, the anger at subverting expectations is because they don't know what they're doing and they do it wrong. A story about Luke Skywalker being traumatized somehow, giving up his connection to the Force, and coming back to it with the help, like as he realizes that there's still hope in the galaxy. You could do that story. It's just not The Last Jedi.
No, it's not him chucking his and his father's lightsaber and drinking green milk from the teat of a giant alien animal.
Right. Yeah, that was screen time well spent. Like, people are here for the lasers and sword fights and everything, but what we really need is how is Luke, or what is Luke eating on this desolate island with all the puffins flying around?
Yeah. Oh, hey, waistcoats.
Hey. So it's like your audience choice and your theme kind of suggests an ending by its nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also too, I would throw in there, killing off the big baddie that you established in the previous movie before the end of the third act.
Yes. Right. Good. So let's talk for a moment about that whole choice. Again, there is a hypothetical movie, if you had planning, where you could kill off Snoke in the second movie. And like the people who, it's interesting watching the debates on this online, because there are people who, it's a bunch of people who just don't talk to each other trying to actually communicate information.
Mm-hmm.
It's people who have decided they like something and they're going to defend it with their utmost. There are plenty of things that I like on an emotional or just like satisfaction level where I can admit they're flawed.
Mm-hmm.
They could be better. But so let's talk about subverting expectations.
Yeah.
If the audience does have certain things that they want out of a story, like if your audience is teenage boys who want to watch a good versus evil story, you can have evil win, but you've got to know exactly what you're doing to make it not come off as a huge cop-out.
Yeah.
Quite often, like a subverted expectation is a Shaggy Dog story. Like, and here's a good example of a Shaggy Dog story. My dad claims this is the original Shaggy Dog story that he heard on that was a joke once. We'll go with that for the moment.
All right.
So these two racehorses, Herman and Berman. Herman and Berman would always race, and Herman first, Berman second. Their whole lives they did this until they eventually put out to pasture. And eventually, so Berman says, "Look, Herman, we're out here to pasture. These races don't count. So I want to impress the fillies. So please, just let me win this time." "All right," says Herman. So they have another race. It's Herman and Berman, Berman and Herman, Berman and Herman. And then Herman pulls away at the last minute and wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
Berman goes over to Herman and says, "What the heck? You said he'd let me win this time." "Yeah," says the dog. "Why'd you do that, Herman?" "Hey, look, Berman, a talking dog." The end.
Yeah.
And when I was 4 or 5, I just enjoyed watching my dad perform this because he did a lot more elaborately than I did. But it took me a while to the joke is that the story doesn't actually end or have a point.
Yeah.
You never know why Herman decided to pull away at the last minute. Is he a jerk? Is he did Berman mess up somehow? But so you want to make sure that your stories have fit the theme, make the audience happy, have a point.
Yes. Yeah, and then when you don't have a point, you get The Last Jedi.
Now, the Last Jedi is also interesting from a theme perspective, because a lot of people who enjoy that movie will defend it on a basis of themes. Like they'll go, "Well, I like that it touches on failure as a theme, because everybody in the movie fails."
All right.
Well, to paraphrase Mahler, if the theme is there, but the movie is still trash, isn't the movie still trash? Aren't there good movies you could be watching with the theme of failure?
Yeah, well, same franchise, The Empire Strikes Back.
Right. That one, that's a story about failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and a good story about failure. I mean, it's you had the Han Solo and Leia and Chewie and 3PO on the Millennium Falcon. They're trying to run away from the Empire, and then they end up on Cloud City, and then Lando sells them out, and Han ends up frozen carbonite, sent off to Jabba, and then Luke fights Darth Vader and gets his hand chopped off, finds out he's his father, and
Yeah. Not a good day in general.
no.
Not even a okay day in general.
Yeah.
And the thing is, everything in the movie built to that point. Yoda told Luke, if you go to fight Vader, you will fail, and everything your friends fought for will be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Which, incidentally, if people have tried to say, see, The Last Jedi fulfills that prophecy. It just took longer than you expected.
Yeah.
Then you have, and that's the thing. So you can have a downer ending. You just can't yank it out from under it. And I think what goes on a lot is times is that people do say, well, if the heroes always do win in a 1 in a million chance, wouldn't they fail 999,000 out of a million?
Mm-hmm.
Realistically? Well, wouldn't that hero fell down the waterfall? If I look at the actuarial tables of how waterfall falls affect people, they should be, every bone in their body should be broken.
Yeah, like Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. I mean, there's no way he would have survived that.
Yep. Never mind that what makes a story interesting is that it deviates from the norm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some debates I've heard where it's like, well, there's just like to bring in a religious thing here. There's no way that a woman could give birth to a child without having a father. So that makes the story impossible. To which the Christian apologist said, yes, we understand that. That's why it was impressive that it happened the one time.
Yes. Exactly.
And whatever your views on Christianity, at the very least, it's an interesting story.
Yeah. Yeah, I had I actually had an English teacher in high school who even said that obvious she wasn't a Christian, but she looked at the Bible as a great form of literature.
Yep. And you know how that happened? Because there was an overall thrust to it. It wasn't just a bunch of random writings with no point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think there's this like desire to be gritty and realistic that gets in the way of fun, satisfying storytelling.
Yeah. I'll give you another example of subverting expectations where it worked. And Hatman used it one time when talking about Terminator 2. So the first Terminator movie, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator going after Sarah Connor, and Kyle Reese is there to protect her. And then in the second movie, and there's another part of it too. I'll get to it when I'm done. But you have Arnold Schwarzenegger show up again as the Terminator, and then you have another person show up who could pass for Kyle Reese, a Kyle Reese like character. And so, and they're both looking for John Connor, and your first thought is, okay, and for anybody who doesn't know anything about Terminator, watching that would be going, okay, well, the guy who's the cop is probably the one who's trying to protect John Connor, and then Schwarzenegger's trying to kill John Connor, until you get to the scene in the mall when John Connor's in between the two of them, and then you hear Schwarzenegger say, "Get down," and he just starts shooting the T-1000.
Right, exactly. It's I mean, if I had had that spoiled by the whole movie spoiled by pop culture osmosis before I saw it,
Right.
I would have been like, wait, what?
Yeah. And originally, James Cameron wanted whatever his name was, Michael Biehn, to play the T-1000 in Terminator 2, but he decided against it because he was afraid it would be too confusing for people.
Right. Plus, Schwarzenegger is historically a license to print money when he's in your movies. So,
Yes, well, until recently, but yeah, at least in the 80s and the 90s, he was.
yep.
Yeah.
Nothing quite like being a failed governor to take some of the edge off your box office.
Yeah. There's that.
I think that the biggest thing is that subverting expectations done incorrectly is like knock knock,
Who's there?
and then just proceed to punch you in the face. Like I gave you a setup. You know what a knock knock joke is. You expect some sort of dumb pun.
But instead, I get a fist in the face.
Right. I subverted your expectations. You weren't expecting to get punched there.
Yes.
And that's how it can come off if you do it wrong.
Right. Yeah, and also too, a trap is something to avoid, and obviously going back to the Star Wars sequel trilogy, when you're subverting expectations, be sure you don't write yourself into a corner.
Right. Like if The Last Jedi had been the last movie of that particular series, that would have actually made a lot more sense than it being the middle of that series.
Right. And then we got the mess that was the Rise of Skywalker.
Yep. It's funny how the Star Wars sequel trilogy is like such a great example of all the streams we've done so far, what not to do. Because let me just take a look at our history here, just to refresh myself on what exactly we did. Pulling it up. All right, so I mean we've got how to make a story just in general, plan, building the world, make sure things are consistent, crafting heroes and villains, make sure everybody has an understandable motivation and a consistent personality. And now it's like theme. Okay, so what did they do wrong? Well, they didn't have a plan. They didn't bother doing any consistent world building and thinking through the consequences of things, like with the whole New Republic. So the whole New Republic fleet was in orbit around this one planet. Yes. This planet that was close enough for the Starkiller base to shoot. Yes. And all of the planets they wanted to shoot were in the same solar system. Yes. And the entire fleet was there at the same time. Yes.
Yes. And just boom, gone.
Can I see? No. Hey, so who are the Knights of Ren? Oh crap, we forgot about them.
Yeah.
They're guys in medieval armor who are not blaster proof.
Yeah. Who's the First Order? They're like the Empire, but not the Empire.
We paid $4 billion for this franchise, so we know you're going to want to see TIE fighters and stormtroopers. Yeah, and it's interesting looking at. What's the theme of your story? Failure? No, not the outcome of your story. What's the theme of your story?
Yeah.
Who's the audience for your story? Well, we know there's a bunch of people who grew up on Star Wars who really want to see the old characters again. Yeah. But we think it would be better to get a bunch of new characters in, and we'll just keep humiliating the old characters until you like them better.
Yes, and promote politics that have absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars.
Right. And the funny thing is that a damning social commentary about rich capitalists extending the war could be in a Star Wars movie. Star Wars is not entirely incongruent with politics. Look at the prequel trilogy; like that was all about politics.
Yes, being taxed and Civil War and yeah.
And you couldn't really do this from the movies, but with the expanded universe material, I could see a reader or a viewer coming away with the idea, maybe the Confederacy had a point, or were they the Federal? Maybe the Trade Federation had a point.
Trade Federation.
Maybe the Trade Federation had a point.
Yeah, or the Separatists.
Separatists. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Like, the Confederacy doesn't sound right. I can't see George Lucas actually naming his group that. So you can see just the multifaceted failure you can end up with. Right. Or imagine if the prequels have their own failures, but you have characters who are reasonably consistent. There's clearly a lot of love in the world building.
Oh yeah.
Almost excessively so, because the first movie gets bogged down in it quite a bit. You have a really good idea by the end of those movies what a Jedi is capable of. And you know what? As much as some of the characters are kind of cardboard cutouts, I could write dialogue, and you could figure out if I was having Obi-Wan, Anakin, Padme, or the Emperor saying it. It would be more of a challenge to do. Well, actually, I guess you could tell Finn, because he'd be the one being awkward and a comic relief character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we're talking about today is just, well, there's enough unhappiness in the world. It's okay for your story to make people happy.
Yeah.
People like to follow something, live vicariously a little bit. Maybe they're lonely and they want some romance in their life. Maybe they work an awful job and they wish that somebody would put that jerk who always steals their lunch in their place. And for half an hour or so, it's nice to just sit down and read a book or watch a TV show or read a comic like Angel's Awakening, now available on Indiegogo. and just escape it for a little bit and see a little slice of the world as it ought to be.
Yes, and I would say that too. Sitting down with your Kindle and reading either Second Contact or Confessions of the MAGPIE Wizard, and getting lost in a fantasy world or a sci-fi world. Yep.
Now I will say, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending of my current book I'm working on, when that comes out, I think it's going to surprise some people. But I've had a lot of readers go, I kind of predict where it's going in advance. So, which tells me that I'm laying the breadcrumbs properly. So I'll be subverting expectations in a few ways, but I'm not going to be, I'm not going to go knock, knock, punch in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with Waistcoats. Finn could have had a great arc, but redemption arc.
Redemption arc, yes.
Finn could have had a very good redemption arc, but they didn't do that.
Nope, because China.
Yeah, and they just had him running around screaming "Ray" all the time.
Ray,
Ray,
Ray.
Oh God, so much potential wasted.
Well, the good news is that I remember before The Force Awakens came out, watching a podcast on Rooster Teeth, which, boy, does that sound ancient in these days.
Yes.
But they were talking about how they were like making their predictions for. It's like, oh man, that one black stormtrooper looks really worried. Are the rebellion and the Empire going to have to team up to fight a bigger threat? It's like, that would have been such an more interesting movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so many things they could have done with that instead of just rehashing A New Hope and then crapping out the last two movies.
You know, there are worse ways to come up with your own story than to watch movie trailers for movies you haven't seen and make up the movie based on it in your head, and then just like start from there as a starting point. Because you could take that original trailer and just go interesting ways with it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we've hit the hour. Anything else you would like to say about subverting expectations, DarthBobCat?
Surprisingly, no. I'm done talking. I guess I subverted your expectations there.
Yes, you did. All right. So to recap this video, understand your audience, know who you're writing for, be prepared for any an audience that you weren't expecting, and act accordingly. Have a theme for what you want the story to be, and it could be anything, or it could be multiple different themes or different arcs, that sort of thing. And when you are subverting your subvert expectations, be sure you do it correctly, as in to have a character do something that have an ending to the story that might not be what someone was expecting, instead of just doing whatever it was that Rian Johnson did.
I believe we call that making it up as you go along and refusing to write a second draft.
Yes. That. Right. So, DarthBobCat, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Boycott Disney Star Wars. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that to be the theme of this video, but my expectations got subverted. Look, it's such a ready-to-hand example of how to screw up.
Yes.
And also, I should say, our talk on themes is like extremely preliminary. There are like whole books written on literary themes. If you've ever done an analysis in a paper for a class, you are probably looking at one of the themes of the book. So, like this is just kind of get you thinking. Make sure your story is moving towards something. Like I could tell you the themes of MAGPIE Wizard are kind of a mix of love and redemption and perseverance.
Yeah. And it doesn't, and like we said before, those six themes are, they don't your story doesn't have to be one of those or a combination of those. It could be, those are just the common ones. It can be anything you want it to be.
Yep. If you can tell a story about why a 5% sales tax makes sense, and you can make it interesting, well, Godspeed. But
yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, I think that's all we have for tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching, including, of course, that includes Changus and Waistcoats. Appreciate you coming in here. I will, before we go, I will play the trailer for Angels Awakening one last time. But as always, I'm Daniel Parker.
And I'm DarthBobCat, the slow-witted.
Yes. All right.
What was he saying again?
What? Huh?
All right. Me on show now.
Yes. All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Night, everyone.
The life of a spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.